kind of, I don't know, just dance, take up space, chant. I made up a couple chants actually on the weekend that I'm really excited about. I'll be sharing them on social media. And then I think I'm just gonna ask everybody if they want to keep going down to Queen, if they want to turn around and come back. I think I'm gonna have to.
If they want to hang out there.
Yeah, I think I'm just gonna have to collaborate with everybody that's participating, because I want this to be very much a group and collective effort.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah,
That's
so I'm super stoked about that.
Oh, yeah, totally.
Are you going to come and join us?
Yes. Oh, my God. Yeah.
Yay. Yay. Exciting.
And that's interesting. You say, like, you just don't see people going topless. I mean,
I do some.
I don't at all. I'll tell you the one time I've seen somebody, like, honestly just walking down the street, not being at a beach or whatever else, just walking down the street being topless. I think I was 14 and that law had just been passed, I believe. And me and my family came to Toronto, once a month or whatever to shop and go to the Eaton Center. And as we were in
Tower.
all the touristy bullshit. And we're in the car driving and saw a woman exercising that right.
Yeah.
And I was just like, oh my God, yes. Like, I can't believe
you're doing this.
This is happening. Like and the full impact at that time of my life, couldn't have hit me on all the layers of how important and powerful and amazing that act really was.
Yeah, very brave.
Very brave. Yeah. And she had this like big long hippie skirt on and like, oh man, it was just beautiful.
That's awesome.
And we're just like all just, I don't think any of us made a comment. But we all saw it and we were just like, all right.
Yeah.
Great. Welcome to Toronto.
Yeah, exactly.
Tourists from Hamilton.
Yeah. We're moving here.
Tourist family from Hamilton.
Yeah.
Okay. And then the last thing that I think we kind of were talking about, we wanted to touch on here today. We've got a few minutes left for it. And that was about the business model of Oasis and kind of the politics of this. We thought this was like an important thing to kind of talk about at this point, right?
Yeah. I really wanted to address this point because I feel like in the grand scheme of things, the gendered pricing issue is a bit of an elephant in the room for some people.
Yes.
And I put a lot of thought into this, and I thought this was like a really great platform to bring this up.
Great.
And so, as I've said before many times on this podcast and just in general, Oasis Aqua Lounge is a hub for the sex positive community. So it means that we're not a swingers club. We're not necessarily a queer venue. We're not a dungeon. We're not a kink space. Yet we offer space for all of those groups at different times. And all of these groups
or at the same time, people, all those groups could come at the same time. Yeah.
And a lot of it, and because there's so many different groups coming to Oasis, they all have different politics, or some of them have different politics.
Yeah, sure.
And not all of these groups get along. And it's very challenging for a business like ours to address the needs of all of these different groups and speak all of these different languages at once. And so we use a model that seems to work best for sex clubs in general. Oasis Aqua Lounge was kind of founded, it was founded by swingers in the lifestyle. The founders are a couple who are swingers. And
a het couple.
Het cis couple. And when they began Oasis Aqua Lounge, the people that supported that business were het cis swingers, because those are the people that went to sex clubs. And so we use the gendered pricing model, because that is sort of what works best in a primarily cis het sexual environment.
Yeah.
Myself being a queer person, for me as an individual, gender neutral pricing only makes sense. But I can't look at the club through the lens of a guest. I have to look at it through the lens of a business owner, a marketing director, and I have to see the bigger picture.
Right.
And so,
and even by gendered pricing, by that you mean a female-identified people pay less usually than male-identified people.
Or even just the gender on the binary.
Right.
And there's certain groups that visit Oasis Aqua Lounge that identify on the binary.
Yeah.
And we as a business are not in a position to judge that. We are accepting of all of these communities.
Non-binary, binary.
Exactly.
Everybody.
Yeah. And I mean, if a particular group for example, swingers, identifies on the binary, as a business, we're okay with that. We don't have a problem with that.
Yeah.
Me as an individual, maybe I think differently, but that's not really on the table because I'm not a guest. And so we then try to counterbalance that by being inclusive in all of these other ways. And so I think when people see the gendered pricing, it throws them off because they identify as queer, they don't identify on the binary. And so sometimes people kind of see that as just like a red flag or just like a limitation.
Oh, I see.
And it's unfortunate because
But I feel like, sorry to cut you off, I feel like though the way it is phrased, isn't it like female identified people and non-binary people pay
that's
this
exactly
amount,
what it is.
and then cis men pay this amount.
Exactly. So that's exactly what it is. So when it says,
so it's
women
not
and couples,
it's not totally women pay this, men pay this. It's like women and non-binary.
Right. Women,
and
trans, non-binary all pay the
this,
same price.
and then men pay another.
And the reason that women, trans, and non-binary pay a lower price is because we are creating a space for people to feel comfortable in their bodies and about their sexuality in spaces that they like probably wouldn't otherwise. And so we want to make that more accessible to people.
Yeah, you want it to be the representation more on that end.
Yes, exactly.
Rather than being that cis-het
Exactly. Yeah.
environment. Because
So-
that's not always the comfortable place for non-binary trans female folks.
Exactly. Yeah. Like traditionally, like if you went to other sexually charged spaces, like you wouldn't necessarily feel as comfortable. So we try to take great lengths to make that space as accessible as possible.
Yeah.
And so, it's a challenge for the business to address all of these different needs. And I mean, a good example of that would be like the swinger community and the kink community. So those communities are both very welcome at Oasis. They're very valuable communities to our business, but they're very different.
Yes.
And they have very different politics.
They do, yes.
Very different ways of interacting. The etiquette is different.
With consent is different.
The consent is different. I mean, I've been to other sex clubs that are definitely more swinger based, and there's a
totally different.
Totally,
It's totally different.
It's like touch first, ask later type of thing.
Yeah.
And so we struggle with trying to address all of these different issues. And I think that we're doing a really good job. And we're also a very unique business. There's no business in, I'm going to say Ontario and even probably North America that is like Oasis Aqua Lounge. Most sex clubs operate more, I guess, on the sort of nightclub end of things. They're not open during the day.
Yeah.
Their language isn't maybe as inclusive. And so I feel like we're a really groundbreaking business. But when you're groundbreaking, there's going to be controversy.
Yes.
And people are going to be questioning things. And that's totally okay. And that's totally valid. But I just think it's just important to talk about it because I don't think that we talk about it enough.
Yeah.
And I don't know if people really understand like
the reasoning.
Yeah.
or
and
the,
like how
the conversation
complicated
about it.
can get when you're dealing with so many different communities that like sometimes don't get along.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's great to say. Yeah, I love that you said that. Yeah, totally.
Yeah,
that's amazing.
And I mean, I understand how some people may not feel validated with the existing gendered pricing, but at the same time, when we're welcoming communities like, for example, like solo cis het men, we have to address certain types of behavior, and we have to we look at it through a particular lens that like other venues might not need to look at it through.
Yeah.
Like if you, for example, if you were go to like,
or they should, but they don't.
Or they don't. Yeah. If you were to go to like sort of a dungeon space, like a really heavy kink space, there's a protocol that's there that works for
There's
that
a screening
community.
process.
Yeah.
Usually.
And they understand that protocol because that is the community that in which they exist in. But like, there's so many different people that come to Oasis. So you have people that have
never stepped foot in a play space ever before.
Maybe not even understand what active consent means.
Yeah.
And so you're dealing with just like,
and you have to assume
levels.
that. You have to assume that as a business. You have to assume that every time to make sure.
Yeah.
Because it's so important.
Yes. And there's just so many things that we're constantly addressing. And so, I think that we're doing a great job of educating staff, educating our guests, educating ourselves on inclusivity and language. And it's like a growing
ongoing
conversation.
Ongoing.
But that's the wonderful thing about it is that we're always pushing ourselves to do better.
Yes. Amazing.
Yeah.
Well, I think you guys are doing a great job
thank
too.
You. Yes,
I really, really do.
We really love and appreciate your support.
Oh, and I will support you.
Thank you.
Fatima, we should be wrapping up at this point. The time just flies when I chat
with you.
It does.
I know. I just love chatting with you. I'm just
throwing
my
throw on the swag for this when you give your all your links and all your information where people can find Oasis, follow you personally if you want to give some of that info as well.
Yeah. So you can follow us on Facebook, Twitter at Oasis231Mutual. You can follow us on Instagram at oasis.aqualounge. You can follow me at Catch Fatima on Twitter, at Fatima Mechtab on Instagram. We've got a great YouTube account. It's growing. We've got some amazing videos on there. We have a Pornhub channel. Check that out, Oasis Aqua Lounge. And just keep expanding and growing.
Amazing. Okay, and for me, if you're a Toronto resident and want to see the Bedpost stage show, we do that the third Friday of every month at 8 at the Social Capital Theatre and the last Tuesday of every month at 9 at the Super Wonder Gallery. If you're watching us on YouTube, subscribe, share it around, leave a lovely comment. That does really great things for me and my business, Bedpost. Same with if you're listening to us on iTunes or another podcasting app. To rate and review always goes a super long way as well. We want to give a huge shout out to the Sonar Network, to the Pacific Junction Hotel, to Eggplant Media for helping us with all our fantastic content. And if you're listening to us on an audio platform, you're going to hear original music by Stephanie Copeland, who can be reached on her website, stephcopelandmusic.com. Lastly, give a huge thank you to Fatima Mechtab.
Thank you so much. I love being on the show.
Me too. It's such a pleasure to have you, and it's been so fun.
Yes, always.
And we'll have to have you back again.
I can't wait. I can't wait.
And thank you so much for everyone that's listening and watching at home. We will see you next week. Bye.